Every business has a data, but without SQL, it is just a noise. Today in this video, I'll show you how SQL turns that noise into clarity and decisions. Think of SQL as your personal data assistant. You ask questions and get answers. SQL is not for techies, it is for anyone who wants to work with the data. It can be HR analyst, it can be finance analyst, it can be marketing analyst, sales executive, healthcare executive, etc. Hi, I'm Prashant. So today in this video, we'll talk about the introduction of SQL. But before we jump to the SQL, let's understand the database first. What is database? Database is a digital file cabinet where companies store information like customer name, order details, payment details, and employee records. Now let's understand types of database system. Number one is DBMs. DBM stands for Database Management System. It is a software that stores and manage data in a structured way. Example, MySQL, Oracle, MongoDB. RDBMS. RDBMS stands for Relational Database Management System, and it is a software that stores data in the form of tables. I mean, in the form of rows and columns and relationship between them. For example, MySQL, SQL Server, PostgreSQL, Oracle. Now let's understand what is SQL. SQL is a structured query language which is used to interact with the databases. For example, how many people brought a product last week? What is the salary of the employees in the marketing team? So all these things you can retrieve from the SQL language. So SQL is basically a medium to communicate with the database. So SQL is a way we ask questions from the data and we get answers from it. Let's understand SQL with a real life analogy. That you walk into a library and ask the librarian, "Can you give me a list of written by Dan Brown?" Now let's understand this real life analogy with your SQL. Your library is the database. The books which are stored in that library are the data stored in the tables. Librarian is the SQL language you use to ask questions, and your question is the SQL query. And the result of queries or the list you get of all the books is your query result. So I hope this one is clear to you that with the help of real life analogy, we can compare our library with the database and our books with the data stored in the tables, and the librarian is the SQL, and the question which we ask from the SQL is the your SQL query, and the result which we get in the SQL is your query result. Now let's see, where do we actually use SQL. SQL is used in online shopping, like show me all the product placed last week, used by e-commerce analyst. In banking sector, we use SQL, like check the transaction history of the customer, used by finance team. We use SQL in HR department, list of employees who joined in 2024, used for employee management. We use SQL in marketing teams, like find the customer who haven't purchased in the last 3 months, used for targeting. Even we use SQL in the small businesses, like to track sales and the customers using simple SQL queries. So SQL is the most demanding skills in the job market. Learning it can give you a career real boost. If there is a data, SQL is proudly being used. Now let's understand the types of SQL command. Number one is DDL, that is data definition language. So this DDL language is used to define or alter the table of the structures. Then we have data manipulation language, which is used to work with the actual data in the table. Data query language is used to retrieve the data from the database. Data control language is used to control the access to the data. And then at last, we have transaction control language, which is used to manage changes made by the DML operations. Now let's understand the common SQL commands which is frequently used in the SQL, that is create, which is used to make a new table. Then we have insert command, which is used to add new data in the table. Then we have select command, which is used to view the record in the database. And update command is used to change or update any existing record in a table. And delete command is used to remove any specific record or any row in a table. Let's do some practical implementation in the SQL. So this is my SQL Server Management Studio. And before we do some practical implementation, let me give you a quick overview of the tool interface. So here we have the left side of the panel, we have the Object Explorer. And let me take a look on that. We have the server name, that is desktop F26 so on. And in the on the left side of the panel we can see a folder that is databases. So if I expand this folder, we can see that there are few databases available, that is database pizza seeds school, SQL intro, and SQL joins 10 a.m. weekly challenge. So these are the database in my SQL server management studio. And if I expand any of the database, we can see that there are few tables in it, and we have one table that is customer 102. And if I expand this table, now we can see the list of columns which are available in that table, that is employee ID, name, age, gender, etc. Now let's see few other tables as well. We have one database that is pizza sales, and in that database there may be few tables are stored, like there are few tables like order details, we have orders, we have then pizza types, we have then pizzas we have. And if I expand any of the table, then we can see the number of columns which are available in that particular table, that is order details ID, order ID, pizza ID, quantities. So I hope this one is clear to you, that all the tables are stored in a databases, and we have a multiple databases, and you have a choice. Either you can create new database and you can create new tables and you can store your data in that, or maybe you want to store any table or any record in the existing database, that one also you can perform. So now let's do some practical. And before we do some operations in SQL, let's create one database first. Let me create the database. So before I create the database, let me tell you one thing, that SQL is not a case sensitive language. You can use in uppercase as well as in lowercase, whatever you wish. Create database, and let me name this data base is intro SQL. And now let me run this query. So my query command completed successfully. So now let me refresh my database, and let's see whether the database has been created or not. Yes, it is created. We have SQL intro SQL in my database. So the database has been created. So now let's create any table into it. Create table employee. And in this table, let's create one column that is ID, and its data type is int. And then we have name data type should be varchar, because the name can vary. And then we have one more column. Let's create one more column, that is salary, and salary we can give int. So it's a very small table. Just for the introduction, I'm just creating this table. So the command completed successfully. So the table has been created. Now let's enter some data or some record into that table. Insert into employee, that is ID, name, salary, values. And now let me enter some records, that is one. Name, let's say Amit, 50,000 is the salary. Let me close the quotation. Now let me give some different employee ID and different employee names. Raj, it is 60,000. And then we have Vijay, we have 70,000. So we have created a very small table, and let me run this query. And now the data, or you can say the rows, has been inserted successfully. And now let's use the select command to view this record. Select everything from EM, and let me run this query. So select command is used to view the record which is available in that particular table. So what we have done previously, we created first the database, then we created one table, then we inserted few rows into that table. Now we are using select command to view that table. So now we can see that we have ID column, name, salary, and we have added three rows, that is Amit, Raj, and Pooja. So this is how select command works. Now let's see how update command works. Update command is used to update any specific record in a table. And how it works, let's see. Update EMP set salary equals to, and let's say that we have to change the salary of an employee, that is Raj, from 60,000 to 65,000. And how we can change that, where ID equals to 2. And now let me run this query. So the command has successfully completed. So let me run this query. So the salary of Raj has been updated from 60,000 to 65,000. So this one is, I hope this one is clear to you that how update command works. Now let's see how delete command works. So delete command is used to delete any specific record or any specific row from the table. And let's see how it works. Delete from employee where, and let's say that we have to remove this row, that is Pooja, that this particular candidate is no more working in the company, so we can delete this record where id equals to 3. Now let me run this query. It is successfully completed. Now let's review the table. So now you can see that particular record, that is Pooja, has been removed from that table. So I hope this one is clear to you that how the basic operations are performed in SQL. First we created the database, then we created the table, then we inserted some values in the table, then we checked that how SQL select command works, then how update command works, then at last we worked on the delete command. So these are the basic operations that you should be aware about this. But there are a lot of things in SQL, but once you start learning SQL, there are a lot of things which will give you an enthusiasm to work with the data in SQL. So now let's talk about the conclusion. SQL is more than just a language. It is the foundation of how modern business understand and manage their data. Whether you are analyzing sales or updating records or designing complex systems, SQL gives you the power to work with the data. Learning it can open doors to countless roles in the tech industries. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Have a good day.